Welcome to the Startup Grind.
From Leslie Feinzaig from Venture Kits.
That's a lot of pressure. Wow.
When what's funny is when I tell people that's the only thing that is kind of unique about the introduction for any kind of meeting is this stand up, and some people get really nervous, like they dread it. But Leslie was like, "Oh, it happens every time at my house, all the time. It's no big deal."
My husband and baby are like, "Woo!" Like every time, like the food is fine.
So again, for those people who have not been to the Grind event, it's really just a fireside chat between Leslie and I. I've been lucky enough to start several companies, and my head is in that space. I've never really worked for any large companies, so it's just going to be us chatting and talking about things that help us grow a business and start a business and inspire us to do those kind of things. So first of all, just thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We actually, a couple friends and I drove all the way from Seattle, which feels like a real day trip. Yeah, thanks for driving. So thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, great. So I last night went to another event, which she happened to host, which is kind of funny. So she hosted her first event last night for the Female Founders Alliance. And I want you just to spend a couple minutes and just talk about, one, why you started it, but two, just where's that going to go? I mean, you really don't know because you're still figuring it out, but like, where do you think it's going to go? It's near and dear to my heart because we're really truly trying to help female entrepreneurs. So give us the spiel on that.
Okay, so I have a different experience than Mike. I actually started in very large companies. I started my career at Procter & Gamble. It doesn't get much bigger than that. And then Microsoft, which is huge as well. And I did some consulting, but they still feel like very kind of well-supported, large corporate way. I started out just thinking, I have an idea. It could be a great app. Like, why don't I just do that? And that very quickly, within 6 months, I was like, I can't do this. I just don't care about it enough. And I started my second company, Venture Kits, which we'll talk about later. And then that really felt like, okay, well, this could be really, really big. It got early media traction without me actually paying for any of it. Very quickly it became a very lonely journey because I started without a co-founder. If you are thinking about starting a company, that's really hard. So try to think about that before. I started without a co-founder. By the time I started to look for a co-founder, Venture Kits was really out in the world. It wasn't an idea anymore, so it was really difficult to find someone to really just jump on board for equity and no salary. And I was going through this low point back in I think January, February this year. Very recently, it's only May. The holiday season was over, and I'd had really bad luck trying to find co-founders, and I was just really beating myself up. And so one day I just started a Facebook group because I knew that I wasn't the only one that was having this experience. And because I was an executive before, I knew a lot of very successful founders. And so I started a Facebook group and I added them, and their names are really highly recognizable, like Jane Park, who was my old boss, and the founder of Julep Beauty, Liz Pierce, who's the CEO of Liquid Planner, Sarah Bird, who's the CEO of Moz, and more Kieran Snyder, who's this founder and CEO of Textio, just really kind of well-known founders, and then some founders who were earlier stage like me. It was just called Seattle Female Founders. We would just promote each other's tweets. We would share media about each other. Within a week, we had 20 members. And then people started adding their friends. And so it was time to make some rules, because what felt really special about it was that everybody knows what you went through.
Yeah. The journey.
You really don't know.
If you've never done it.
If you've never done it, you really don't know that there is actually, you think you know, because I remember 2 years ago I thought I knew. I was no, I can totally I can totally talk to Mike about being and in fact did talk to Mike.
Exactly.
But when you actually quit your job and do the thing,
way different.
Yeah. So, put some rules around it, made sure that everybody who joined was only kind of after they quit their job and started the thing, like really started the thing. It's out in the world. It has online presence. It's,
it's real.
Incorporated.
Yeah, it's real.
It may not have raised money because a lot of people are trying to raise money, but it's real. And also you're a woman. Because I actually know more female founders than I do male founders. It's just my life. And so, 3 months later, it just like really kind of started to become a community and took off by itself. And, just like 100% on instinct without really having any kind of plan or vision or ulterior motive. I renamed it the Seattle Female Founders Alliance one day. And then one day somebody said, oh, hey, why don't we get together and do a like joint fundraising? Like everybody, those parties where you like bring your ex-boyfriend and like all the single girlfriends like meet each other's ex-boyfriends. So we were like, well, why don't we do that? Like I have all these investors who turned me down. So like maybe your investors who turned you down want to like meet me and like maybe they'll like me more than like you and like it's a better fit. And so, I started to work on that and very quickly realized that actually there was a lot of support to be had. It evolved from just like around a conference table, bunch of founders, bunch of investors to like a major event that was effectively an accelerator because we actually a lot of founders went through the process and slowly kind of dropped off. And in the end, we only had 8 founders who pitched who were actually selected because they were the best. One of them is right here. Actually, 2 of them are here. You guys are amazing last night. I will actually do shout outs in a bit. We, hooked them up with pro bono coaches. One of them is here. Had like hours and hours of free mentorship available with founders who are further down the line. And then had this event, invited 50 investors and 50 founders from the alliance. And then some like amplifiers like yourself. And had no idea what was going to happen. No idea what would happen at the thing. Like, are people going to show up? Because, it's Seattle and like it was a sunny day. Like, what's going to happen? And it ended up being like,
it's great,
mind-blowingly good. I mean,
yeah, it's quite good.
So much so that I honestly don't know what's next. To your second question, like, I don't know.
Well, that's great. I mean,
what do you want?
Yeah, it's just, I just like the fact that you just took the initiative to do it when you didn't know, you didn't actually have an ulterior motive. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm just going to do it. One of the things that entrepreneurs normally have is that thing. I don't know what it's called. It's just initiative. It's just kind of gumption. It's instinct. It's all those things, and you just take that step. And that's many times that's the hard thing, is taking that step. Like when you say, you go without a paycheck, it's
a lot.
Talking about it and doing it is two very different.
I actually thought like the first few months after going without a paycheck were like super easy. I was like, look at me, entrepreneur. It took like a year where I was like,
holy shit, I got no money.
Like, you're charging how much for coffee? Like, no. I'm swearing, and you're catching me on video.
That's all right.
Yeah, I will say, but the thing about starting, just like doing the thing, is that the first time is horrible. But when you actually do one, like if you just take action the first time, even if you like fall on your face, I mean, if you're like, if you have the kind of entrepreneurial, I don't know the name for it, whatever it is. Yeah. Like once you do it once, the world looks like a startup to be. Like you have new ideas like every week, and like it is just so much easier to go and like do it. And if like really the worst that can happen is, unless you have a lot of investors, the worst that can happen is not that bad, right? Like at this small like first few months, like maybe I'll make a fool of myself, and that's happened a lot. So
exactly,
I do that all the time.
Who cares?
It's fine.
So tell us, you had a highly I don't want to say educated, but you're Harvard, and you went to some good schools, and what was the, like when you were in college or maybe out of college, what was the thought? Like where did you think you wanted to go then? Like, did you have like, a plan? Like some people know when they're 16 and they always want to be an entrepreneur. Like where was your head at, age 24 or whatever?
No idea.
No idea.
No idea. In fact, I remember when I was about to graduate college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I remember like one of my advisors like noticing how stressed out I was about it so I went to LSE, the London School of Economics for undergrad, and a lot of people really, at least they seem like they have their act together, and I really didn't feel that way. I had an advisor who noticed like how strung out about it I was, and she just said, "Go try everything. Like just go try everything." And I didn't. Unfortunately, I'll tell you a little about my background. So I was actually born and raised in Costa Rica. And I know you can't tell by my accent. That's because I worked really hard on it.
Really hard to get rid of it.
Yes, really hard to like sound like this. I was still really self-conscious about it, but you know, now it's kind of imperceptible these days. Yeah. But the fact that I am from Costa Rica means that I have visa problems, and so most of my career up until 5 years ago or so was quite literally dictated by which companies can sponsor my visa.
Sure.
And so I graduated college in 2001, and then 9/11, and I lost all of my job offers fell through because nobody was sponsoring visas. And so I just went back to Costa Rica. I had a job that paid $700 a month was my first salary. My second salary was $1,000 a month. And that was like I
decent
sacrificed
wages. That's decent wages in Costa Rica, right? Or no, is that like it's like mid-level? What is that?
No, it's they're not by any means. I mean, I was like 21 or 22.
Oh, okay.
Like it's not a living wage by any means. I guess this was. I'm not going to date myself. Oh wait, I already
You
did.
You already did. You already did. You graduated college in 2001.
Man.
We know.
Okay, so
we kind of know. We've done a few years.
Cat's out. Yeah, so I guess like at that age, you're still living at your parents' house, or at least I was. Then you can do something with it. But when I got into Harvard, which was actually quite a miracle at the time. Now that I know what it takes to get to Harvard, I'm like, what? How did I do that? I have no idea. But once I got to Harvard with a full scholarship, like literally my starting salary post-Harvard was 10 times what it was pre-Harvard. And it was just average. Like I didn't go into finance where you can really make a lot of money right out of school. It was just average, and it was like 10x what it was before. I had an H-1B visa to begin with, which is, I mean, the first few years was like a blessing. I don't know if there's other people here who have like the immigrant experience, but it really ties you down. Like there's only so much that you can do. You know, the first few years it felt like I was so lucky to have these job opportunities with like the most incredible companies in the world. Like my first year and a half, I was a strategy consultant, and like I would go in and have clients like Pepsi and like major like Google was one of our clients. Like, and these people were so smart and so like innovative and all of these things that I just sort of I just didn't know it existed, you know. So the first few years were like a total privilege. After a while, the privilege wore off. Particularly when I was at Microsoft, I really kind of figured out that it was too big for me. Like I just was not comfortable. I was just not comfortable. Like there were too many cogs. But I couldn't leave because I didn't have a green card. So it was really career shaping for me.
Yeah, and where's the, you know, like, let's talk about that, the the immigration part, because that is it is interesting, and it's I mean it's true for many I mean it's very timely, but it's you know, it happens to actually a lot of people, especially at Microsoft. Like where do you think that the political situation, where do you think that could be improved to make it easier for your situation? I mean, your personal situation, to be able to work either sooner or easier, or what do you think? What would be, like, if you could wave a magic wand? Yeah. What would it do?
I think you just need like an entrepreneur's visa, honestly.
Just a separate visa type.
Yeah, I really, really do. And right now there is actually an entrepreneur visa, but you need a very large investment to be able to. So you can get it.
$1 million?
It's in the millions, yeah.
Yeah.
And if your last salary was like $1,000 a month, then that ain't all happening. And I also think, like, honestly, when I was growing up, I went to a British school system in Costa Rica, so I was very kind of exposed to the opportunities outside the country. Is why I went to London for school. Also because I had a scholarship. But, it was always, for me, I know that there's many of you who feel this way, but it was always so aspirational to move to the United States and work here with the best. Because it's like the best of the world are here. And I think that that's really good for the country. Like, it's really good for America to attract everyone who wants to really make, I want to play with the best. Like, I want to learn from the best. And it no longer is.
Yeah.
It's just not. Like,
it's changed.
No, not at all. Like, I will overshare with you that I recently was rejected for citizenship, which, totally sucks. And it's fixable. I'm applying again, and second time it was a mistake that the lawyers made. So, it'll be corrected. Yeah. But the first time I applied was like a year ago under Obama. And not to be political about it, but I was like, he sent me like we sent him an invitation to our wedding a few years ago, and he sent us like the congratulations, like framed, like it's like so aspirational. And then November, and now I get to apply. And if I actually applied a month ago, and if and when I do get the citizenship, it's going to have a different name on the certificate welcoming me. And it's honestly somebody who doesn't really make me feel all that welcome. Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. I appreciate having the, like, efficient business mind in government. I think that is it can be a very good thing. But this is no longer a country where you want to go play with the best. Yeah. It's just... Or,
there's other places. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Like, Europe is a lot more... lucky for America, my husband will not move anywhere. He will stay in Seattle the rest of our lives.
That's great. What is the if you could take a few steps back, say 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when you were kind of had the by then I think you had the idea by then, didn't you have the idea?
The idea itself was like almost exactly a year ago. My daughter was 3 months.
Yeah, because we had talked about that, and you're just playing with it at that point.
Yeah.
If you could go back to that point, what would be the 2 or 3 things you would change to do differently that you just hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah. What would be a couple things you would say? I wish I would have done this differently.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's nothing.
Nothing. No, okay. There's like 20 things. But I think a lot of those things I could not have done differently because you have to learn the lessons, right? Like, unless you are kind of a lifelong physician and you're starting a medical startup and you already know everything about that field, then like you can never go outside of the one thing that you're an expert on and start a company. I certainly started a company on something that I was not an expert in, the toy industry. So there's a lot of things that I know now that I would have done differently from the start, that I could not have done differently without learning. So I think the one thing I would do again was that approach of I'm putting out a minimum viable as quickly as possible, getting it on shelves, getting it online, and just seeing what happens and like getting all that feedback with also what I would absolutely do again is not take $1 of investment because I didn't need to. It's not a tech product. So, like, those things were really, really smart. The part that I think I really underestimated was that part about how lonely it can be. Not just the working on it day to day, but also you get, like, a lot more decision fatigue when you're the only one who's totally vested in your company. It's, like, exhausting, particularly when I was used to, by my last job, I was running a very big team. I was used to this, like, very collaborative environment where it didn't have to be all about me. It could totally be about like how smart other people were and like what they brought to the table. And then all of a sudden it's like all you, all the time. I totally underestimated that. So I think if I could do it again, I would spend more time up front.
Trying to find a partner or...
I was in such a rush to get a prototype out to market by the holiday season that I just figured I will find a co-founder after the holiday season. Yeah. And by then, like, this funny thing happened where, like, I still wasn't making enough money to pay anybody a salary, including myself, like by no means. But the company has gotten so much media attention that like, if you just look at my website and like look at my email line, like I got a lot of potential co-founders reaching out to me that were super late career, incredibly like rock stars. I was like, oh my God, you want to work with me? Like, oh, yes, let's do it. But at that point, like they really expected a very high salary from day one. And it put me in a position where like, if I wanted to take on one of these co-founders, it was sort of like a single parent dating and finding a wife or a husband. It was like that. It was like, the baby's already born. It is what it is. We're not going to change it dramatically. Like, you're no longer in the ideation space. This exists and we're going to execute against it. It was just really, really hard. That's the one thing I would do differently is like find myself more potential co-founders up front, find myself advisors, people to like speak with like once a month or twice a month. Like I would have done that day one.
Yeah. No, that's
a big one.
It's very helpful because you're in a vacuum by yourself, right? Decisions are weird when you're just by yourself.
You're getting your own head so much. You don't know how to interpret data. And the data, like before, in my last few jobs, like data was like plentiful. And the problem was like, how do I analyze it? And like, what are the real hypotheses? And, like data is like, you get this much data. It's not representative of anything. Like you have to figure out what to do with it. Like you don't have any systems or money or other people. It's like,
well, yeah, no,
where's my Tableau?
Yeah, that's one thing that I think that the especially first-time founders have a problem with because they either, especially if it's an idea, it's like they're the specialist on, so it's all in their head, right? So they're like, oh, this is great, and they're kind of afraid to bring in a second party into the mix. So they, you get a little. Called closed-chested. You're really guarding everything, and you really that sets you up for bad things because you'll make weird decisions. Sometimes, not necessarily bad or good. It's just they're weird because you're in a vacuum. You're not talking to other people. So that like advisors would be something.
Advisors would have been a really good one.
Would have been helpful.
Up front.
Yeah.
I kind of made this kind of rookie mistake, I think, I have a very good network of investors from my Julep days, even though I was not a founder. So I just went and talked to them about my idea, not unlike I went and talked to you. And then all of a sudden they were the investor and no longer the mentor or whatever. And so the good news is I feel like I soft raised like money that I could call in. But on the other hand, now they're investors. Now you can't just like go in and say, I have no idea what I'm doing. You have to like, do you know this? Like, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I think if I would have sort of gone in from day one and said, hey, I need advisors.
Not money.
And I did say, I don't want your money, I want your advice. But that thing that they say, you ask for money, you get advice. You ask for advice, you get money.
Yeah.
I think it's true.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
Yeah. And where has been the surprise for Leslie on a more personal basis? Where's the thing that's been surprising for you as just a person that you've learned about yourself that is a surprise that you learned? Not like, oh, I'm not very good at X, Y, Z. Like, where was the surprise? Like, oh, I just didn't realize that I was either going to be bad at this or be really good at this.
Yeah. So I had a lot of like confirmation of the things that I thought I was bad at.
That's good.
Yeah, so that was not a surprise. It's like, oh.
So name one of those things.
Operations. They just don't get me out of bed in the morning. Like coordinating, like the creation of the kits, right? Like sourcing everything and like making sure everything's on time. That running that they're not natural to me. Like I will do it because I literally have to, but the first thing, I recently found a co-founder. It's amazing. The first thing I was like, you take that part because I'm not good at that. And she's actually an expert, like a COO for hire. So totally confirmed that part. The most surprising thing for me, I would say, is I always considered myself to be really bad at business development and sales. I had gotten feedback couple of times in my career from like a couple of kind of client-facing moments in different companies that I was not good at business development. And I internalized it and thought, I'm a wallflower. Like, I'm just not good at business because like all these smart people think I'm not. Actually, I'm really good. Like, last night was like the ultimate. Like, I was like, okay, so I guess I can really sell something. Very surprising. Very, very surprising to me. And it made me question, like, how much did I stop trying things that I was not naturally good at because somebody told me not to. I don't know if everybody feels that way, but I definitely like. I've been always of the mind that like if you're good at something, you should lean into that. You know, like if you're really good at finance, lean into it because you're gonna be like the best, right? Versus if you're like kind of bad at operations and you lean into that so that you can be better. You're just going to be mediocre at operations and mediocre at finance. So I always think like if you have something that you're really, really good at and you like to do, then like
do more of that.
Do more of that. Get better at it. Be the best at it. So I sort of, when people told me you're not good at Eds, I was just like, okay,
I'm not going to do that.
Let me leave that to somebody else. It turns out you can surprise yourself, I guess.
Yeah. And if you had the opportunity to like interview the perfect co-founder, what questions would you ask that person? Like, how did you do that? What did you learn in that process? It's really, I mean, how many people
have to answer that.
Yeah, how many people in here are looking for a co-founder or have looked for a co-founder? So there's a couple people, 3 people, 4 people. So it's hard.
So how do you do it?
Well,
I'm really bad at it.
Well, my thing always is if I can't have a beer with a person, I don't want to work with them because I work with them way too much, right? Because I'm with them more than I'm with my wife.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? I mean, you think about it. I'm with Katie Chase. She works in the package guard, so I'm with Katie more than I'm with my wife.
Yeah.
Because my wife I see 2 or 3 hours and then I'm asleep, right? And sometimes it's like an hour and I see her and I'm asleep, right? So I may be working. So you think about that. So that person that you're working with has to be like, you got to be pretty damn compatible.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
so how do you figure that out? Like how did you do it? Like
she honestly found me. I gave up. I gave up, and that's literally that is how the Female Founders Alliance was born. Because I gave up. I was like, I'm not going to find a co-founder. It is what it is. Or certainly not on my timeline. I was like, I'm going to let go of the timeline and just focus back on like executing by myself. And it's just going to have that's it. That's what it's got to be. And she found me. So I will say the one thing I did learn from the kind of co-founder experience, and so for those of you who are looking for co-founders, I don't know if this is true, but I've been told that like generally your co-founders are people that you've known for a long time or have worked with before. And I haven't lived here that long, so I didn't have anybody that really fit that bill that could also quit their job and like work for zero money for a long time. Like I just didn't have a lot of people like that, or any actually. So I tried sort of the network approach, like, hey, I'm looking for a co-founder. Could you let me know if somebody pops up in your radar? And I tried AngelList, which is a website that you can go on and post a job. And people kind of reached me that way. So one thing that I learned is like be 100% transparent day one. Like this is not, like I am offering this much equity or whatever. You don't have to say the precise number, but like the ballpark, right? Like this is my range. It depends on how much time you're going to put into it. Whatever it is that your thing is. If you're doing it for equity alone, say that it like immediately because you're going to waste a lot of time and heartbreak interviewing people who. And here's the thing about people who want to be co-founders, at least in my experience, if they have never done it before. If they have never done it before, the language of entrepreneurship is so hot right now. It's just partially why I started Venture Kids. Like it's so much of our social vernacular these days, and like founders are like superheroes. Like Elon Musk is like Iron Man. Like it's like real hot. It's so glamorized that a lot of people who have never done it before think that they want to be founders or co-founders. and I felt like after a while, I just felt like I was being used to like for them to live out their co-founder fantasy for a week, and I was like, and then when they realized exactly what my life looks like, like the mess that my house is in most of the time, and like the sleep that I give up, and like just like the reality of because 90% of starting a company is like super unglamorous. Like it's not. This is like the highway.
Exactly. This is the fun part.
This is like but it's like 1% of the time. I mean, you can go months without having that high. And once they really see what my life is like, it goes back to I really need a salary. Okay, listen, buddy. I went this far bootstrapped. I am most definitely not going to go fundraise just to pay you a salary on day one because you can't really be a fund. Like, that's not, So have that conversation right from the start.
Yeah, first
my
day.
co-founder just found me. She asked me for a phone call. She found it on AngelList. I guess I forgot to, like close the job posting. And so she found Venture Kits one day. She called me. She explained what her circumstances were. She's been a kind of consultant, like a COO for hire for like 5 years, and then like a 10 or 15 year Accenture leader, like a consultant. She's like 100% an operations person. She's based out of Portland. Yeah. And that first call was supposed to be 1 hour. We ended up talking for 3 hours. It was like the best, like kind of like girlfriend, but super smart conversation that I'd ever had. I was able to like tell her everything about Venture Kits, the really good and the really difficult. She had like ideas. The next day she sent me a pro forma.
You're like, what? I love you.
It was like when I was single, and like if a guy would call the day after, it was like that. I was like, oh my god, free pro forma. And she was like, do my assumptions look right? I'm like, yes, they do look right. They look so good. I love your assumptions. Like, it was just the most thrilling thing.
I love your assumptions.
Oh man, yeah.
That's a tweetable moment. I love your assumptions.
It's not a. Okay, fine.
Yeah. I love your assumptions.
You're so good, and like you're like your formatting is like perfect. Like all of your formulas are correct.
Size your font so perfect.
So good, and you even have like a titling. I'm a little OCD about like Excel and PowerPoint and also like life. So those things are like, oh, I found her. He's amazing.
That's great.
So like a week later, we got together in Chehalis, Washington, which is halfway between Portland and Seattle.
Yes.
And did like 4 hours or 5 hours of brainstorming, and then just hashed a deal right there.
That's great. That's
yeah,
great.
Good.
That's great. So in the in the early stages of idea formation, like when you're formulating the idea, the concepts, and how did you understand whether the product was right or not right? Like how did you do your customer validation? How did that process work?
So if you would have asked me like 6 or 8 months ago, I would have told you that the actual idea for what Venture Kits was and looked like came to me in like a moment. It was like I visualized it immediately. It was like an aha moment, and that's the prototype that I put out. So today, like that is still true. I visualized it immediately, but then I learned so much about like the toy purchasing process and like who really makes the decision and how that comes through, and also what is the right age for like the playtime. That like Venture Kits is going to have to evolve and look a little different, just like incorporate all of that finding. But I think I did 2 things that I would totally endorse. One is a lot of play testing. Before anything was ever like in a real box, I like mocked it up using PowerPoint and like coloring pencils, bought like a pretty box, and I just like faked a Venture Kit, and I played it over and over and over again. I'd bring like kids from the neighborhood. I just posted in all the mom groups, like come play. I need like little entrepreneurs. I made like sessions with like 4 kids of the same age, so like 4 or 5-year-olds, 4 6-year-olds, 4 7-year-olds, 4 8-year-olds. I think I played with like easily, I don't know, like about 50 kids just in that first 2 months. And I walked out of it with like a really, really solid, like very confident that the product was great. So I would definitely do that. Yeah. It's a little bit harder to do with like a straight tech product. But you can actually get really creative about faking the service If it's a customer-facing like technology, you can actually fake it really, really well just to get like validation that it exists. So I would definitely do that again. And the other part, if you're a product, like you're hardware, so you kind of probably know this, like you will live or die by inventory. That means a lot to me. I know it doesn't mean much to anybody else, but if you are bootstrapped or if you take your investment and like put it all in inventory, and then you're kind of at the mercy of the sales cycle, you're at the mercy of seasonality, like, you know, particularly if it's your MVP, you don't know how it's going to perform. Like, so that's a really smart thing that I did, was like very small batches for my first couple of kits, purely for like data collection. They're built almost on demand at this point. I will only build a few every week, knowing what like whatever my sales are projected to be. I can kind of tell, like, if I have a lot of media or if I have any media, then like they shoot up. If I have no marketing, then they kind of like quiet down. So, you know, I did not put all of my life savings into inventory.
Sure.
So those are the two things I would probably like absolutely do again. The part that I didn't do, is that if you are out on retail, and also even on your website, I guess I didn't realize, and to be fair, my background is in product management. I've been doing product management for like 8 years or something like that. And so I had this like approach of like the product. Actually, packaging is like really important. And online, it might not be just the packaging, but your website is kind of your packaging, like your PDP, your product detail page, that's sort of your packaging. I did not realize how little time you get from the customer to like explain your concept straight away. That was probably like the biggest thing that is changing about Venture Kits, is like it has to look like something that you understand, like that. Just go to a toy store. Like every toy in there, you know exactly what it is the minute you like. It takes 1 second. Most of them even have either the entire like actual toy or game
on the board,
like illustrated on the cover, or they'll have like a plastic film so you can see inside. It's because you get like a fraction of a second. Venture Kits is like a big idea, and it's like so conceptual. It's like, you know, turn your kids into entrepreneurs because the skills of the future that are going to help them succeed are not the STEM skills that we think today, but really it's the entrepreneurial skills, because those are the things that the robots won't be able to do. All of that in like a fraction of a second with like a picture of like a briefcase. Big fail. Yeah. So that's probably what needed the most work that I did not know at the time.
Yeah.
So, big learning.
Yeah. And, you know, and I think one of the things that, well, we talk about a lot is it's important to have design skills, you know, close by. You know, whether they're part of the team or whether they're, you know, someone that you know are already working with. That's super critical.
I'm sure that must be easier at like startup number 6 than it was at
startup
number 1.
Well, yeah, it is much smarter, because they're actually part of my equity. I call them my equity team, which is the equity holders, because they have to be early on. I mean, way early. Yeah. I think part of that understanding that design is understanding your product really well, so you can communicate what's supposed to be designed, because you can't communicate what you don't know. And so designers need to know all that stuff before they can design a great product, whether it's a product, whether it's a box, or whether it's a website, all of it. You know, the website, all that stuff's super important, especially if it's just a piece of software, it's a service that you're selling. You better have a website that rocks.
Fraction of a second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal.
Where do you think so now that you're in the toy business,
educational toys.
Yes, toy business.
At the intersection of the toy industry, which is $26 billion a year, and educational publishing, which is $29 billion a year, and they're both growing at 5 to 10% CAGR.
So now that you're in the toy business, yes.
No. Yeah. No, but like my pitch is like my mad skill, because I'm good at business development. Didn't you know?
Yeah. In that process of you know, let's take that. I'll skip that. If you were going to raise money right now,
yes,
what would be the easiest part of raising money right now?
Getting a meeting.
Okay, what would be the hardest part?
Making the ask.
So describe what making the ask is to you.
So I've actually asked for mentorship on this by people who have raised. Honestly, the first time around, I found myself like sitting in. I think I could say this. I had this meeting with I'm not gonna name it, with a very big angel investor in town, and he loved
the idea,
the thing, and like loved my background, and like I came very highly recommended as well, which is how you want to get the meeting. So, oh no, it's okay. I knew in that meeting that I could ask for money right there, and I didn't know how. I just didn't know how. I was like,
what do I say?
Yeah, what are the words? It was such a self-confidence thing and like a rookie thing. It's part of my personality. It might be related to being a woman, being Latina. Like actually asking for money is not easy the first time, at least not to me. So I've gotten coaching for this, and I've learned what some founders will say something like, "Would you like to participate?" That's kind of the way that they frame it.
Yep.
Or, like we're closing this round and this deal. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, there's different approaches to doing it, but like making the ask is just like, oh, that's so scary. Because I think it's kind of a prelude to the very kind of big knowledge, like this big kind of like weight on your shoulders that now you have other people's money. And I think that's an enormous amount of pressure, right? I guess I need to go through the experience of like blowing through it first. No,
hopefully not.
Exactly. Never. But I don't have that failure under my belt, so like it feels very daunting to me to like take other people's money. Now after that meeting, I think when I started working on the prototype and I realized, wait a second, this isn't a software business. I don't need a ton of money to like put together a big box toy and like try it. I just realized that like actually that was genius. I don't need money. I can bootstrap this thing. I can get sales. The quicker I do this, the quicker I get money from customers. And so I just like went in that direction and like really fast.
Which 9 times out of 10 is most of the time the better way to bootstrap and at least get to revenue.
I mean, I
whether
think
it's $1 or
it's
whether it's
doable
$10.
because it's a physical toy.
Yeah.
It would not have been doable being a non-technical co-founder or founder. It would not have been doable for a technology product. And that's part of why my first startup, remember we talked about it, was the photo app. That's part of why I had to stop working on it, because I realized like the only way to actually get a product out there was to raise money for it without a technical co-founder. And it just felt like it was just not going to materialize. Like I needed like millions and millions of dollars to build something that like Google will like sneeze and create tomorrow. And it felt like not a good competitive situation and not a good way to start my fundraising. And so I just kind of let it go. Yeah. Before I had a chance to pick it back up, Venture Kits was born.
So I think the big learning there is, for an entrepreneur, if you've not raised money, it's talk to people who have raised money and just ask them how they did it. It's actually, anyone that's raised money, it's not hard once you've done it 1 or 2 times. It's actually, it starts to come natural, and you're not, you always ask for money. Just the way it is, right? So that, I think you just talk to people.
My next co-founder.
You just talk to people that have done it, and then you get some great advice, because it's not hard. It's actually there's a cadence. There's a cadence to it.
Like I was talking to Rahul earlier, and like talking about how part of the vision behind Venture Kids, so they're businesses in a box for little kids, and they learn entrepreneurship through play. And part of the inspiration behind it was the fact, like my own experience, you really need to do something once to know that you're able to. Even if it doesn't take off, or, you just have to do it once, and hopefully you're not like so horribly scarred by the experience. That you can be like, oh, you know what? Like, actually, I can take that initiative. Just try it. Like, the downside is not tragic, right? Unless you like mortgage your house or something, like it's not tragic.
I did that once.
Don't.
It wasn't a good outcome. Let's just say that. That was my biggest failure. Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. That's how you learn not to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And learn from Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
So I learned from Mike. I think that was what was behind Venture Kids, was like, if I can show a little 8-year-old that they can be a CEO because it says so right here in this letter where it says, congratulations, you're now the CEO of your own company. And company is like the specific kit that they bought. So it could be like an art auction. What we have now is an art auction and a bakery. And in the future, we're coming up with like, you're the CEO of your own magazine, of your own like video channel, like very different things that they can do. And like, bam, they're a CEO. You know, like the next time they get to be a founder CEO, it's like, no, I already did that. I was like 8.
7.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, it was great. I like ate some cookies.
I'll see you.
I made like $2.
That's how it works.
This is a true story. Play testing, $2, and the kid was like, $2.
That's awesome.
It was great.
And so, if you, where do you think this journey? Where do you think you can be in a year? Like a year is not too far, but you can kind of see a year. Let's say 18 months. Where do you think 18 months is? Where do you guess you're going to be in 18 months? So I'll ask a couple questions. Okay. 18 months. Will you have raised money?
I will.
Okay, let's just say, will you have raised more than $500,000?
Yes.
Okay.
But not, so I'm going to crowdfund.
Okay.
Well, we should talk about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm going to crowdfund in the fall.
That's good. That's really smart. And how many people do you think you'll have in your team?
I don't know the answer to that. So the strategy for Venture Kits, like Venture Kits is a mission-driven company. And the mission is to tangibly show every little kid, no matter who they are and what they look like and what they believe. I want every little kid to have an equal chance to become tomorrow's leader. And I believe, just like out of a year of like living this idea and surrounding myself with all of the research that is published about it, like I genuinely believe that our children's generation, I don't know if anybody here has kids, but like my daughter's generation is a digital native. She can code, like she will be able to code better than she's able to communicate in person. And like you can read study after study from like the World Economic Forum and things like that that say that like 20 years from now, the real differentiating skills are literally the entrepreneurial skills, grit, initiative, right? Like that ability to like act on something and be entrepreneurial, problem solve, be creative, and also emote, like talk to people, communicate, have empathy, ask questions, active listen. Those are the things that are going to make our kids stand out from the crowd. And so like for Venture Kits, like I want the like BHAG, the like big goal is like, I want to do for entrepreneurship what the Harry Potter books did for reading. I want to make it cool. I want to take it out of the classroom. I want to bring it to the living room, and I want them broadly accessible. Now, knowing everything I know about the toy industry, and like its tendency to consolidate, like the distribution channels are, highly concentrated. Yeah. I think the best path forward is to get acquired.
Yeah, find a partner.
Yeah, so I think that honestly, the path that we are working towards, me and my co-founder, is getting acquired within 18 months.
Yeah.
Right now, we are not in a great negotiating position. We've talked about like licensing deals, but like the company is so new that like the proof points.
There's not enough of them.
There's not really, because there's like a lot of media and a lot of very happy kids. But like, does that get me like a big exit? Probably not yet. It gets me a licensing deal. I know that now.
Sure.
But it doesn't get me a big exit. And so, I think like the next 18 months is all about getting enough proof points that we can go to like a Spin Master, or a Spin Master is a big toy company, or even like a McGraw-Hill, like an educational publishing company. Yeah. And sell Venture Kits in such a way that like a much bigger partner or owner can get it in every shelf in every store in the country, which is something that is going to take me 15 years to do, and a lot of raising money over an industry that investors, I honestly believe that like the reason I believe I can raise money is because of who I am rather than the industry that I'm attacking. Yeah. A lot of investors just don't like ed tech. They don't, education space is really, really hard. The toy industry is really, really hard. So the investment is in me, and I know that. I think my idea is worth investing in 100%, but I also know the risks of like failing by distribution or failing by inventory, and like I don't think investors necessarily want to put a bunch of money that is going to get stuck in inventory in like bad shelf placement at Target. You know about this as well.
In that the like public, like right now you don't have the knowledge because you weren't in the publishing business, right? You weren't in McGraw Hill or any of the big publishing companies. But you know what you can do there is you can go on LinkedIn, find people that have retired within 18 months from any huge publishing house, and just send an email to them blindly, and you'll be surprised the response you get because your product is so cool.
Huh, okay, I will try that. I will let you know how that goes.
You should try that.
I'll try
Absolutely try it. You should try that because it will work.
Yeah.
You have a good enough product, it will work.
I actually introduction. Somebody introduces you to someone who introduces you to someone else. So I ended up meeting one of the founders. She's a founder and CEO of the biggest toy fair in America, which is a Chicago toy and game fair. And we didn't sign a partnership, but came up with a collaboration plan. So I actually ended up really well positioned in the toy industry itself with all of these people who are like, oh my God, why isn't anybody doing this? And this is such a cool idea. And they love this story because I have this duality to me. In this room, I am Leslie, the founder, and the sort of tech person, and very kind of real. But the head of Venture Kids is a mom, right? Which is it's just also a part of who I am. But the marketing story around Venture Kids is also true. But it was it was a mom who had a 3-month-old baby who bickered with her husband about whether she was going to be an engineer or CEO, and started a company to win the argument. Right? That's literally they love that story. It is so much about my daughter, not by virtue of her being a girl, but by virtue of her being a human, right? I just want her to succeed. And I also, my introduction speech from last night, I talked about why I started Venture Kids, and also this vision that I really what I hope most for my daughter is that she gets to live in a world that's a meritocracy, and I just don't think that that's the case today, because of my immigrant status, because
woman,
because I'm a woman, because pregnancy was hard, I couldn't keep up the pace that everybody else it's just not. But it's not just something that happens to me. It's something that happens to a lot of different people. You can be the proverbial white male, kind of like my husband, and be a huge introvert, which we were talking about, and never be able to shine in a room because and that little kid also needs to know that they can do it. In our generation, it's part of what kind of frustrates me a little bit. In our generation, it feels like you almost have to group together, the Female Founders Alliance. You have to group together to help each other rise. I just want in my daughter's generation for everyone to do that, and not just the girls versus the boys versus the immigrants versus it's why can't we all just compete on the basis of our badassery? Megan's lovely word. Why can't we all just compete based on how much our customers love us? That's what I want for her.
Questions, guys. We can have questions. Sheila? Yeah. Oh, what's I forgot to ask for that. The ask every guest. What's the first job that you had? What you got paid from a non-relative?
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, from a non-relative, not the relative.
So.
How did you make your first dollar from a non-relative?
My first job with a non-relative was a foundation. So it was a very coveted internship that was unpaid. So that was not it.
that was not it?
No, because I didn't make any dollars.
Yeah, you just
I worked for really amazing people.
When did you make your first dollar that was not a relative? Was it after college? I've had a few guests that did.
Probably, yeah, because just think about it. I was in Costa Rica, right? So
you worked for your family.
You work for your family business. So my first job was I was 13 years old, which is child labor, and my cousin at the time was the head of or he was the manager of a perfume store, they just sell perfume, and it was the holidays, December, and so he hired me to be a perfume sales lady.
Oh, sure.
I was this cute 13-year-old who had no shame, I had zero shame, and I was like the best salesperson on the floor because I had.
Yeah.
I mean, like, why wouldn't you buy from me? What's wrong with you? Like, so I would just like convince all these old people to buy the really expensive perfumes for like their wives, and like that was the first job that I had. So and then I parked cars. I like at a big parking lot, you know, when they move like a valet type of person. So I did that. In related news, I'm really good at parallel parking.
That's
just like.
That's good.
I don't know, things like that.
I was like the first time you actually had to work, right? Which
a
lot of people did newspaper jobs, stuff like that. Question. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, listen, I'd like to get your thoughts, opinions. You mentioned 20 years from now, the skills are going to be important. We're focusing a lot on STEM, which makes sense today.
Yeah.
But with AI and machine learning and deep learning, what skills are going to be important in 20 years and how they're different from today?
So 37 and 2035. What do you think it's going to be like?
And this genuinely is not just what I think; it's what I've learned through the Venture Kids experience. It was crazy to me that, like, when I did my research a year ago to see how much venture capital has gone into toy companies that are like focused on STEM, like robots that teach kids to code, and these like $250 robots that teach kids to code has like raised a ton of money. But actually, and I do believe that STEM skills are important. I also think that like my 1-year-old can handle my iPhone. Like these kids are digital natives. Even like my cousins who are kind of 18 or 20 years old can basically program in like very simple languages. So I actually like, and my husband is a software developer that does machine learning, and so I kind of experienced firsthand the fact that like everything that he is building is to make the software write itself. And so it feels like these skills, with a lot of things, I think our market kind of reacts one generation too late. Today we have a severe shortage of STEM skills, and so like they try to teach the 2-year-olds, right? But that doesn't solve today's problem. What solves today's problem is like Apprenti or like Ada Academy or Code Fellows. Like we need the people today. 20 years from now, a lot of today's kids will know how to do those things, and also the jobs will be more maintenance jobs than like the very highly paid software developer jobs. And I also think like I don't know what you guys do. Like there's some kind of founders in here, and there's some of you that are still kind of at companies, but like these skills of the entrepreneur, even though it is actually very different once you quit your job, the skills of the entrepreneur make you stand out anywhere. Like taking that risk, taking that first step, having initiative, getting up after you make a fool out of yourself. Like those skills differentiate you today and always. And when you look at the kids who are playing with those like $250 robots, they're like this. So we're almost like creating this entire generation of like solo players. So what is more differentiating in that generation than the ability to like look you in the eye and talk to you like an equal and like ask you questions and understand that about you? I became a mom last year, and like I am terrified of what my daughter is going to experience in like relationships in the future, because they like, there's entire generations of kids like in college today who don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to be real. Like all they are is an online persona, and like I'm terrified for her. So I kind of leaned into the idea that like, no, I want to make her more human, more entrepreneurial, more, a better listener, a better risk taker. That's what I want from her, or for her rather. I don't know if that answers your question. The World Economic Forum actually publishes a lot of stuff about this. And listen, buy venture kids, don't buy venture. Actually, do buy venture kids, but like focus on, like, remember that the thing that is going to make your kids succeed is like their ability to be human and really good at being human. Because the machines are going to take over a lot of the rest of it.
Yeah. Go back.
You mentioned a lot of things you learned through on the job and being entrepreneurs. Were there any books or curriculum when you were in school that helped you out?
I don't remember, honestly, no. I think it's something that I recognized a lot more as I became a manager than I did when I was an individual contributor. Just you start to notice the difference. And I think I kind of did it without being being purposeful about it. I think it turns out I am naturally very entrepreneurial, which just makes me lucky. I don't think that you have to be a born entrepreneur. I don't believe that. I think that you can exercise that muscle. But I didn't notice the difference until I became a manager myself. And then it's like, oh my God, like this person is going to go all the way with it. And like, and like, they'll be okay if I give them feedback versus like somebody who's, kind of just there to check in, check out. Sorry, not very helpful, but it's true.
Back.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your candor. So you said that.
It always scares me when people say that because then I'm like, what did I say?
I mean, you're being very real. So you said that your product is very abstract concept and not easy to explain.
Yeah.
You said initially you're struggling to explain to my client these subjects. What's the line you use now to describe it so that people know?
Venture kits are toys for future CEOs. That's my 2 second.
There you
Okay,
go.
so I have a 2 second, a 30 second, a 2 minute. I won't bore you with all of them, but I think it's a lot harder to explain on the box than it is for me to get up on stage and talk about it.
Okay.
My question is, you have said the things you get into, you get the first steps in your own company or founding your company, you have to, for instance, online. So I want to know how do you reach
Yeah.
your company online? Did you hire developers or purchase something?
Yeah.
Or partnership with companies?
Yeah. So I want to differentiate. If you are a software company, I don't mean you have to be online in the sense of you have to have a product launch and fully functional. I do mean that you have to have a website, a Twitter handle, like online evidence that this company really exists and you're actively working on it. So does that make sense, the difference between the two?
Like you sell your own website too, or how do you sell it?
Yeah. So then how did I do my own website? I used Wix on day one and Shopify for the set sales. I used MailChimp for email management. I still use all those things. And I kind of like tied everything together myself. I am technical enough. But it's actually quite easy to do all those things. And you can even, like a lot of these website companies like Squarespace or Wix, if you don't have design skills, like my website is custom designed, but if you don't know how to do that, then your first website can be a really beautiful template and you just kind of fill in the photography. It's like super easy to start. You can do it for like under $200.
Easy.
Very, very easy to do that. I do like for the Alliance, like the criteria for membership in the Seattle Female Founders Alliance. The reason I care about that is because you kind of put a stake in the ground. Because I have been both the wannabe entrepreneur, like in my job, daydreaming about this idea, playing with it and like thinking that I have it all figured out. I was that person like 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, if the Female Founders Alliance existed, I would have thought that I should totally be a member.
There. I should be there. Yeah.
Then I quit my job and failed my first company and started over. And now I know that actually I did not belong in this group because it is such a fundamental life change between I'm comfortable in my job and I'm just dreaming of this idea and it's perfect in my head because nobody has ever had a chance to kick the tires. So it's still you still think you know it all to I'm eating dirt, like I'm burning the midnight oil, I'm learning all these really hard lessons, and I'm having some incredible successes, and I get to like talk at Startup Grind, and this is amazing. But actually, the day to day is like, then you're in the Alliance, and I actually think that like it's really important to get more women to go from like A to B, and like organizations like the F-Bomb Breakfast Club do a far better job than I ever could in helping people who just have the idea and are not really sure what to do about it,
Get off the cliff.
Yeah. So like when I get people who apply who are in that stage, they generally don't like hearing that they're not going to be a part of the alliance. But I do send them over and say like, go talk to Megan or like go to that breakfast because, and there's other resources as well, but this is like a really kind of great example of like, there are places to go to help you move out of the
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, into yes, this is really for you, or actually, you know what, this is not for you.
That's okay.
On it, like guys, like
Okay.
that. Probably one of the biggest things that you see these days is like people who should not be entrepreneurs, like because it's not for everyone. It's really not. Like
No, not even close.
no.
No. Go ahead.
Have you heard about minimally invasive education?
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Minimally invasive
Education.
education.
What is that?
Basically, a new sort of education that they try. I guess it's tried in Europe earlier, like 10 years ago, 1990, 1999, and then they started to build up some application. It's more on the IT side, but I guess it may be good intersections and to have it actually in your product. I don't know. I just think about
I will look into it. Thank you for that tip. Yeah.
It
sounds like basically.
It's basically give the opportunity to the kid to learn by themselves.
Yeah.
Because what is the teachers actually behave in the school is just the main factor of the teachers is like saying, hey, you did a good job. I guess your product is just giving you the enough confidence to to kids.
Yeah.
That if you have a kids, you know that the kids always says I cannot. Yeah. Even though they can. So this is all the confidence that we give to the kids that you can. And
You know, I have a funny story. There's every kid. So the Heart of Venture Kits is a gamified business plan. So I wrote actual business plans for like a lemonade stand and a bakery and like an art auction, and then I kind of used my experience in games from my time at Big Fish to gamify them. So that's kind of the heart. It's like 10 steps from like from like start to profit. Each step has like a completion reward. You know, you have like different challenges along the way. So it has kind of very simple rules of gamification. And then I have a Q&A at the end of it. And in the Q&A, when I was writing the Q&A for art auction, for like one of the kids asked me when I was playtesting that they asked me, well, what do I do if I fail? Like, what do I do if I don't sell anything? And I was like, I guess I should put that in the Q&A. Like, so I sat there and I'm like writing the kid and I wrote, okay, what do I do if I don't sell any paintings? And I sat there and I tried, like, I wrote this like essay about how it's okay to fail and like the important things that you tried. And then I was like, here's my email. Let's talk. If you tried and failed, I've done that too. Email me, leslie@venturekits.com, and that's what the answer is. I don't have any wisdom about
good answer
what do you do? You try again, but I didn't want to be cliche about it. I was like, you know what? I've been there.
Yeah. One last
Nobody
question.
actually emailed me.
No one's asked yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Well, they'll tell me in person.
Yeah. One more question, if there is any more questions. Any more? Okay. Well, thank you much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Yeah.